Alright, once your water's up to 165, it's time to dump it into the mash tun and add your grains. And my grains are already crushed, so I didn't have to do any crushing. Got it in the bag. I used to add them slow, not anymore. Just dump them in there. And then go ahead and stir it really good. Make sure there's no dry stuff sitting around. Just want to get it all mixed up really good. Mixed very well. And then we want to take a temperature test, temperature reading. You want to be between 148 and 152. It's a little bit higher than I want it to be. I usually like to be closer to 150. That's my personal preference. If it's a little warmer than you want it, that's the nice thing about going a little high, is you can always just add some ice cubes. My recommendation is to go a little bit high if you have to. It's more difficult, especially if you're just using a cooler for a mash tun the way I do, because you can't bring the heat back up. So again, as you cool it, you can just do it with a few ice cubes at a time. You should be able to see now that, and that was just 4 ice cubes. You know, what you want to do is you want to test and check and keep your own records. Make sure you know where you're at, what you want to do. So this is good for me, 149.5, just about 150. Puts me closer to the 148, which gives me, if I remember right, you get more mouthfeel when you're at your lower temperatures. Your higher temperatures will get a little bit more alcohol, so it'll be drier. I like to split the difference, if you will, and be about 150. So we're all done. It's an hour, a little past an hour right now, and it's time to start sparging. Here's the setup we got here. Got my brew kettle, got my tube, my mash tun, and a plain up strainer and a 1 gallon bucket. The first thing you want to do is I run through 4 gallons. And what we're trying to do is get a good grain bed so that it will drain and not fill the kettle with any grains or anything like that. You know, it's up to you how many times you want to do it. I've been doing this for a while. I just do 4. I don't even think about it anymore. I'll take this once it's done draining and pour it into here, back into the bucket again, right into the strainer for this same thing I'm going to use when I run water through it. And basically, all that's doing is preventing you from stirring up the mash and, you know, sort of trickling the water on it. Because if I just dump this right into this bucket, what's it going to do? The water's going to drive right down into the grain and mix it all up. And we don't really want that. We want it to just sort of trickle on there. That's what it looks like inside there. And that's it. 4 we're going to do it. We've run through our 4 gallons. We've got a good solid grain bed. Next thing we want to do is start the sparging process. Now I'm going to run through almost 5 gallons of sparging water, right? And I want this to drain out over an hour. So this is going to be, if you're doing this for the first time, it's a little bit of trial and error. I'm going to crack mine and I'll show you where I set it. But what I try to do is I try to gauge it off of the timing, right? So if we want to go at least an hour, we've got just about 5 gallons. It should take us about 10 minutes to see grains. See, right now we don't see grains. We can see water, we don't see the grains. And that's what I usually use as a rule of thumb. So that's what it's going to look like when you start draining it. And you don't want to go too quick. It's just going to be a sort of a trickle. And again, it's not the end of the world if you go a little too fast, but time it. See where you're at. That's the best way to do this. So we look in here. Now that we've got it running, it's time to go ahead and start the clock. Like 8.5 minutes, and you can see that I'm pretty good. I'm running a little bit fast. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna adjust this back a little bit. But I'm gonna do that by looking at it when I do it. I like to keep the lid on it when I'm doing it. Keep the what heat I can. Today it's 35 degrees outside. A little chilly in the garage. But now that we're here, we can go ahead and add our first gallon of water. So I've got my gallon of water, and this is it. This is fly sparking right here. One way to fly spark. It's a low budget, no extra gear method. Got a little strainer colander in the kitchen, you can get away with it. You gotta go buy one of these too. They're cheap. Now we can see that's it. Cover back on. Keep the heat going. Should be. I'll check it in another 10 minutes. On track, right where I like to have it. This way, I know when I'm going along. It's going to be every 10 minutes. I'll be adding water, and I'll definitely sparge for an hour. So again, don't want to rush it. You want to try to get all the sugars out, try to maximize your efficiency. But I think too, like as long as you're consistent, you can always adjust, right? You could always, change the amount of grains, whatnot, so you can start to know where your efficiency's at. That way you know what your alcohol content's going to be. At least, so if you're shooting for a 6% beer, if you start to get used to it, you know what your consistency is, you know what your efficiency is, you can hit it every time. One of the things I like to do is repitch yeast. So I drained my 5-gallon bucket from the last batch. You can see all that goodness there. This was actually a very active fermentation. It went right up into the airlock. So all you got to do if you want to repitch is sanitize. So I use Star San. Sanitize my bowl. Sanitize my spoon. Then you got to wait 30 seconds. Star San's is an acid-based product. It takes about 30 seconds. What I typically do, again, I guess I call myself the frugal brewer. I'll mix up a batch. I got a bottle that's marked here. I worked it out, so it's basically 24 ounces of water to a 1/4 ounce of Star San. Shake it up. Stuff lasts forever. So after 30 seconds, all we gotta do here is I don't know if I can get this on camera with only 2 hands. I'm just going to scoop some stuff out of here. That's what we'll do. I'll show you like that. So, and what I like to do is I'll pull it from a couple of different spots on the barrel just to give everybody sort of a free shot. I don't know, it doesn't make a difference. This is all you need. And to keep junk out of it, I'm going to cover that with cellophane. It's covered up with cellophane. Why did I do this? Because I don't want any airborne stuff getting into it. And so when I'm repitching, all I do is, again, try to be really good about, keeping the lid on the bucket for as long as I can. You don't want anything flying in here. I like it. That means I can save $7 a run, because the thing of why yeast is the snap packs are going to cost me $6-7. See, I forget because I haven't bought one in a while, but if I don't have to spend $7, I don't have to spend $7. The one criticism I've got is as I mentioned before, the yeast changes, if you will. But You know what, if you're really worried about that, you should be keeping a logbook. Here's my logbook over here, very simple. You'll notice here I wrote second yeast, third yeast, and I know exactly what I brewed, right? So if one of my brews changes and it has like a really like something different and I suspect it's the yeast, I can get to that yeast again. I just gotta follow the same, brew the same brews. See if I get the same yeast, and that could be a strain that then I work from. That's it. So now I've got all of the sparging done. You can see we've got all of our wort in here. Next thing you want to do is take a gravity reading, right? You want to get your original gravity reading. One good thing to do is give it a good stir. Make sure everything's all stirred up properly. There's a recommendation I had by Mark. For me, I'm using this, oh geez, what the heck's the name of this thing? A refractometer. And the refractometer allows me to take the gravity reading without having to use the hydrometer. I use this to measure the pre-boil gravity, which is what we're going to do now. This is before we boil it. To measure the original gravity, but I use the hydrometer to do the final gravity. In this case, I ended up hitting it at 1.040, which is the same gravity I got last time. So kudos to me. The process is working, and I get my consistency with my gravity readings. Now it's time to light a fire under this sucker and begin our boil. Oh, the one other thing I'm going to add to this is called firm cap. Firm cap is just like it's basically like a liquid kind of plastic, and it helps with the foaming up. That's optional. I tend to use it after I had a lid blow off. Now I use it before the boil, and I use it when I'm throwing it into the bucket. When I had the lid blow off, that was during the fermentation. I think what happened was the airlock got stuck. It blew the lid off, and Tess recommended firm cap to me, so I use that all the time. So I'm going to add 6 drops of firm cap to this, light a fire under it, and I'll turn this back on when we get to boil. We do our first hop addition. We're using 1.25 ounces of Nugget and ½ ounce of Warrior at the 60-minute mark. Here we are. This is the firm cap. Just add 6 drops of that. Stir it in there. Imparts nothing absolutely whatsoever into the taste. One issue I wanted to bring up to people is that you're going to do your own all-grain batch. Depending on your burner, you're going to have some boil off. This right here is a 10-gallon pot. And what I've noticed with my 10-gallon batches is I need to be at the bottom of that little silver ring. Somewhere right around there is going to cover me for a 60-minute boil. If I have less than that, I'm going to end up with less than 5 gallons of wort, and then I have to add water after, which puts in the risk of contamination. So you can do the water. You know, there is a slight risk. I don't know if it's ever hit me, but I like to minimize my risk when it comes to sanitization. But I have this big Bayou Classic burner. Hopefully you can see that. It might be a little bit difficult, not sure. But when I switch to that burner, it's great because I'll get up to boil in about 20 minutes. And I keep that rapid boil, but with that rapid boil like that, I can keep a nice vigorous rapid boil, which I'll come to. There's a lot of boil off, so we're going to end up losing a lot of this volume here. So on a 10-gallon pot, I'm probably at 7.5, roughly 8 gallons right here of wort. And I will bring that all the way down. I'll lose 3 gallons to evaporation. Getting really close to boil. I'll be adding in the first hop addition soon. When you've got this much liquid in your boil, you're uptight. I tend to be patient with adding my hops. Right now, got kind of a really good flame going on there. It's a little windy here today, so breeze comes in, kicks up some orange flames. See, right now, just as we're starting, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the heat because I don't want it to get all raging just yet. Wait for a little bit, but I mean right now we can start adding them, and I added a little bit at a time because you'll see a little flare up. There, that's what I was a little worried about. I have had them come up pretty high in the past. Sort of learned this one by doing. So you get that flare up right there. And then what I'll do is I'll just come back and wash it back off. I want the hops in the wort, not on the side of the kettle. It can be a little precarious. You want to turn the heat down a little more. It just takes, probably should look into why it flares up like this. But what I can tell you is that as much as that flared up, it's not as bad as I've had them. I've only had a couple of boilovers. When somebody says a boilover, that's typically what they mean. You'll throw in this hop addition. The hops will flare up like that and go right on up. And usually, not always, once you get past that stage, it kind of stays like this. And we'll want to keep I keep a nice vigorous boil on it. And, I'm going to start my stopwatch. And with this batch, we have no more hop addition until minute 15 or minute 45. So we're going to go for 45 minutes, and we'll add the next hop addition in at the 15-minute mark. I believe with this recipe, I've got a 15-minute mark and a 1-minute mark. We'll touch on that when we get there. Okay, so we've been boiling for close to, we're coming on to the 45-minute mark. I was going to say close to 45 minutes. You can see here the difference from where we started, how much of a boil off I've got going on here. And what I like to do is I like to add my wort chiller just before I'm going to do my 45-minute addition. Yeah, there we go at the 15-minute addition. Does a couple of things by dropping this in here. A, we want to sanitize the wort chiller, right? We want to boil it, so I just do it for 15. You have to boil things for at least 10 minutes to sanitize them. And I like to drop it in just before I do my 15-minute addition, because when you drop it in, it takes the boil down, and then you can throw your hops in and not get such a flare up. And now we're going to go for, I believe with this recipe, we're going to go for another 14 minutes. I think my last addition is at the 1-minute mark. I think those hops are making me sneeze. So at the 15-minute mark, we added 1 ounce of Columbus. And when we get down to 1 minute left, we'll throw in 1 ounce of Centennial. And if I manage to pull all this video together and put it up on YouTube, I'll put the lists that I had for my version of this IPA. Again, this is a clone of the Stone IPA. So we're coming up on the last minute. I'm going to chuck in this last addition, 1 ounce of Centennial, and then give it a minute. And I'm going to be bringing this from the garage into the kitchen. I got my oven mitt over there. I'm ready to go because this sucker's hot. You can't pick up this thing without oven mitts. Nice little flare up there. Turn the heat down a little bit. It's funny, I got none of this at the 45-minute mark. In the last minute, it wants to flare up, make a mess of everything. All right, got to turn it off. I'm going to bring it inside. We'll film a little bit more of the cool down process in a minute. I'll hook up the wort chiller. So I actually made a little wort pre-chiller, if you will, to go with my wort chiller, which is this little contraption here. These gaskets always fight with me. But you want to get it right. You don't have water all over the place. So put that in that. And I just take some ice because I want to fill this bucket up with ice. Some cold water in it. I'm not going to go super full with it because the ice will melt. But I find that having the ice water works really good to pre-chill the water that goes into the wort chiller. I keep my clock running. Took me 4 minutes to get that all done. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bring it down to 76 degrees. Got it down to 75 degrees in 15 minutes. So from boiling to 75 degrees in 15 minutes. You can also see the difference here, just how much of a volume drop. It started out up here, ended up down here. This is, I think, the key to getting it. You have to have the wort chiller, but adding a pre-chiller with ice water works wonders. So now I'm just going to pour it into my bucket. Here's my strainer. I'll be pouring it all into there next. Got everything in the bucket. Now I just got to skim off the foam so I can see here, take another gravity reading, and then throw in my yeast. Alright, so at this point, I want to add some more firm cap. That just helps a bit with the foam, the bubbling. And I want to take another gravity reading. That's to measure our original gravity. I take my yeast that we pitched earlier, or took out of the fermenter from last time, dump it on in there. Give it a good stir. We can see here on the side of the bucket, I'm not sure how good the video captures it, that I'm right where I want to be. So I added enough water where I'm in that with just a little bit over 5 gallons of wort. And in 7 days, with my friends the yeast, we will have beer. That's it, man. Cap it, put an airlock in it, put it down in the fermenting room that I have downstairs, my closet, and wait 7 days.